Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. You know when you are suspecting that somebody has been lying to you, especially like if they're cheating on you, and when you're uncovering the little clues along the way, and sometimes they're really crazy clues, but it's always you as the bad person that is like being the accuser if you either bring it up to the people around you or you're trying to check whether you're the crazy one or not. You always have to give the benefit of the doubt. You can't be the one that accuses. Same thing from the beginning of this SJM case. We have been giving the benefit of the doubt over and over again, and we're always kind of told to just, oh yeah, just kind of forget about it, especially among those friends. There's some of those so-called friends who say like, oh no, you're just overblowing. Notice how those friends always seem to disappear when the truth is finally revealed, or when you do actually confront them, they're like, well, how was I supposed to know? They were really nice to me. Well, yeah, and then you know what? Off the Christmas list. When you see the light, let's not forget about all the really big zingers that you actually had to let go. Because we're not going to do that with the SJM case. Because today I want to go over the 5 things that really still stick out. The 5 big turkey legs. Let's bring them back because we were told that they were little chicken legs or little chicken wings. No, we're gonna snack on some 5 big turkey legs the way that we should have back when we first saw them. So what's the first thing you go through when you're suspicious of somebody? Yes, their phone, their smartphone, their digital footprint, and of course, number 5 is Mr. A's smartphone. That was, remember, found by the janitor way after the fact. Remember, this whole thing was so shady because he apparently, supposedly, found it 2.5 weeks after the incident. So everything happened April 25th. He claims that he found it 2.5 weeks later on May 11th. But he said that, oh, I just put it in my locker and I forgot about it until May 30th, until he heard about all this stuff on the news, and he's like, oh, they were talking about a smartphone. Oh, maybe that's has something to do with the smartphone that I found, and oh yeah, maybe it's in my locker. Maybe I should turn it in. All a coincidence. So shady. So we all gave the benefit of the doubt back then. But what now, upon further reflection, I think is the biggest red flag is that when he said that he found it, he added the statement that, oh, well, it looks like this phone hadn't been there until recently. Even though it's Mr. A's phone that he had lost 2.5 weeks prior, I don't think it was there for 2.5 weeks. I think somebody had just dropped it hours before, as if they just sort of planted it there for us to find deliberately. Now, why would a janitor be involved in some sort of James Bond conspiracy? Like, shouldn't it just be a phone that has no place of origin and time? Like, the most dishonest he would probably be would be like, oh, I found a phone, maybe I could go sell it for some money. Why would he be involved in some James Bond conspiracy unless he was involved in one and let it slip? So again, let's just remember Mr. A's phone was found 2.5 weeks after the fact, and remember, GPS did track it going all over the place north of the river when they were south of the river. And 2.5 weeks after the fact, and then miraculously, the day after Unanswered Questions aired, the day when the lawyers announced their big statement. It was sort of like the D-Day weekend. When you really think about it, it was kind of like the offensive push by Mr. A's team to just basically unleash their whole thing. They were hoping to probably end it right then and there definitively, and probably that phone was supposed to be kind of like the pedestal or the icing on the cake, saying like, look, there's nothing on the phone. All right, let's go to SJM's phone. Remember, this also was highly suspicious, and we just let it pass by, but no, I think this still extremely sticks out, and we have forgotten all about it. Why? Because the father had submitted it to the police forensics team for a digital forensics, and all we got back was a boilerplate statement that they got probably like from the website of SK Telecom, saying that, oh, sometimes when your phone is turned off, it has background data usage because they're just updating the apps. He submitted the receipt for his background data, and the background data showed at particular key moments of the SJM case where there was heavy data usage. And all the police said was, that's just background data usage. No, let's go over this again, because we know now from looking at this that that was highly misrepresented. We know that they actually had uploaded videos and photos to social media. 1:22 a.m., 1:37 a.m., 1:55 a.m. Look, 3.8 megabytes, 3.5 megabytes, 580 kilobytes. That's either video or phone calls. And then it goes throughout the evening sporadically a dozen times in the 10 to 90 kilobyte range. But then what we need to really take a look at is the super heavy data usage at 3:38 a.m. That's when Mr. A was calling his parents. That bumps up to 212 kilobytes. 4:23 a.m. That's when Mr. A supposedly woke up right around then. The first time he's supposed to woken up, and then apparently he claimed that he woke up at 4:27 a.m. 412 kilobytes, almost double. Then 4:36 a.m. is that when he went into the taxi, 178 kilobytes, and then 5:15 a.m., 640 kilobytes. That was like when they were searching the premises, or when they were back on the park for the second time with his parents. Then 5:28 a.m., 155 kilobytes. But you know what, guys, is the worst part about the police report that is so egregiously shocking about how they even got away with this? It literally states on this receipt that how long the usage was in minutes, as in how long you were talking on the phone for or how long you were texting for. This was a consumer-oriented receipt that showed you whether you were doing data chatting or data phone calls. So it's not a log of raw data usage for like computer programmers or whatnot. This is a consumer-oriented bill of whether the data that you used was for text messages or voice calls using your data plan instead of your voice plan. So for them to have just said, oh, this is just like background data usage for your phone to be just updating on its own, is completely utter nonsense. Number 3, blood that was found on the ground near the site that the police said did not test positive as blood. Everybody said like, oh, what about the blood that was found on the ground? Like everybody who looked at the site said, what about the blood? But then the police came back and said like, oh yeah, that blood, it didn't test positive as blood. Okay, so then what was it? I don't know. We don't know. So the investigation showed a lot of like drippity drip drops of red substance, and the police said that the test came back negative for blood. But obviously, SJM's father does not believe that that's what happened, because he hinted a few days ago that he did his own luminol tests. And many of you in the comments have said, luminol tests show any traces and evidence of blood, even if you try to scrub it with bleach and acid or whatever you try to do to get rid of evidence of blood, it will show. So if it does indeed come up as blood, it really does start to expand the theories, and if it is SJM's blood, it does bifurcate the theory. Right now, we have been working off the theory that immediately SJM's body, after it had been pushed or fallen over, after he had fallen over the riverbank, he'd been sent out to the water. There has been this, what I would call more of an extreme or out there theory, that he had actually been moved instead of immediately thrown into the water. But I thought that that was a little bit more far-fetched. But this blood droplet theory, like if his head was bleeding from the back and if it was dripping along the way, that definitely does give credence to that theory. And so this luminol test would be able to at least point us in that right direction if it is the correct way to go. And this is why it is so important that we should have had a scientific-based investigation from the beginning instead of what sort of looks like it was very politically oriented. All right, so number 2, the divers not being able to find a body that was just meters away from the accident site. So remember, even when I went to go visit, I could literally point to where the body was found. Seriously, if the fishermen, so-called, could say that they saw a person walk into the water, then I could definitely see, probably even with x-ray vision, into the water and have seen SJM's body there. And these guys were in scuba gear, swimming, looking for SJM's body, and you can't tell me that you couldn't find him. So that to me sticks out really big, because either they were deliberately not looking for him, or if really he had been moved, he wasn't in the water, and then he was later placed in the water. Or how about this? He could have been immediately put into the water, right? And then remember how the parents and everybody kept looking at the water as if they were worried whether SJM would stay down there? Well, let's say you're worried that, guy might not stay sunk, because they're scientists or they're doctors, they know, right? Can you put comments below? Because I think I read somewhere after a while, when a body decomposes, the gases then make the body lift up. So it's going to rise up and you're going to get caught, right? You are going to get caught. So maybe they had actually sent divers to go look or something to make sure they got rid of the body temporarily. And then when they were good and ready, they put the body back. Because why? Let's go to number 1 now. The number 1 thing that still sticks out is that SJM's father, in his own words, when he went to the autopsy, said, wow, he was so surprised. But he said at that time he was actually more from a very grateful point of view, that his son looked so... His son actually looked like his son. His body didn't decompose as much as he thought he would have. His son looked still intact. And so people were like, that's a little odd, because if he had been in the water the way that they claimed, and especially related to, number 2, when they said they weren't able to find his body because he had drifted out into the river and then the currents drifted him back. That's why, even though we were swimming all around, we couldn't see him, and that's why he had the bumps on his head, and that's why he had the bump on his cheek. When everybody who has looked at that river, studied that river, said that that is stagnant water. It's almost as if there's a dam there, that water don't move. That water is shallow. That water doesn't do anything. And even one guy, I mean, he said like, I threw like a plastic bottle in there, and it's totally not scientific. That's why we need a scientific study. But he did his own non-scientific study, and he was just like, I threw a bottle in there, and I came back the other day, and I can't be sure it's the same bottle, but it looks like the same bottle, and it didn't even move. And so, that water in that area, yes, you always have to be careful about that river, like, don't take it for granted, but just in that area, that area, if it weren't so dirty and rocky and slippery, could be like a kiddie pool. So those are things that really still stick out. And we have to remember when we are now reviewing these things to not forget the big red flags that we just kind of like zoomed by because we wanted to be polite, nice, and not accusatory back then. Fine, back then, we should not do that. We should absolutely be fair, impartial, and objective. But now, after we have been analytical and we have sifted through the evidence, then we should actually give the things that we did not weight accordingly and appropriately their proper due. All right, guys. Share what you think, and please encourage your friends in Korea to continue to sign the petition. We still need about 20,000 more signatures to get the National Assembly to reopen this investigation for the Son Jung Min mystery. And some people in Korea are calling it Han Rivergate. All right, guys, we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.